Hello everyone, I'm going to do a casting today, and I'm trying to make a shield, and I'm sort of getting ready for Comic-Con, and my plan is to have a shield with these rays coming off it. And these, I made a model. This isn't quite done, out of polystyrene, and my plan is to finish it in some metallic finishes, and I can get some really beautiful finishes here. I'll take the lids off, a couple of lids, and you get these nice metallic finishes on a resin, on a urethane resin. Here's a green, and you get some really beautiful effects. So that's kind of the plan I have, and I'm going to use a platinum silicone, and there's some right down here. This is what I'll be using. But before I do that, I have to make my model, and then I made this mold box here just with foam core, just real quick, and I seal it with hot glue. Right here, hot glue gun, and it's pretty simple. And I filled it with clay, and all I have to do is set my model in here, and it's about halfway filled. And I'm just going to cut out a recess and put some index marks in it, and pour the silicone on the top, let it cure, cut out the bottom of this mold box, and remove the clay and pour it on the other half, and I'll have a two-part mold. That's pretty nice. So I just pull this out, and I just carve out a relief here kind of quickly. And the nice thing about this silicone is it's really durable. You can use it a lot of times. It's dimensionally stable. In this particular one, you measure out by volume, so you don't have to weigh the contents. You don't have to do any kind of vacuum degassing, deaeration. So it's pretty straightforward to use. The biggest problem is having a bad model, because if you have any imperfections in your model, it'll be picked up perfectly in the casting process, which is really nice when you're dealing with human anatomy and prosthetic devices and stuff. It's not so nice when the thing that you've cast isn't exactly what you want. So then this will fit in here, and I'll just deburr it really quick. Now, and again, we're not keeping the clay. It's just the clay is letting us have a parting line. And I'll put this in here. And so we'll pour the silicone on top of this. And all I need to do, and you can do a lot of things with these index marks. You can put things in. I'm just going to put a couple of index marks in here so that the two parts line up nicely. And I'm cheap, so I'm trying to minimize the amount of silicone I have to use. So the area between the model and the box is what gets filled with expensive silicone. So that's why I made it small, but you don't have to make it this small. Okay. And the next step will be to prepare the silicone, pour it on top of this, let it cure, and then we'll flip the bottom out. I'm going to pour the mold right now. I've got the resin set up, the two-part silicone, and I've got my model in this clay bed, and I put some other, made some other attachments to this embellishment for a shield. I've got some casting pieces in there. So I'm going to mix these, and this is two-part silicone. Do it like this, and I stirred it up really well in the canister. And now I'm going to stir it together. And I'm trying to be doubly efficient by pouring them at the same time, which kind of works. And this is a slow cure silicone, so there's no big rush. I think it's got to cure about 4 hours, roughly, before I can remove it, although I don't have to wait that long. So I'm going to pour it on top of the clay bed, and of course on top of the model, and then it's going to cure, and then I'm going to remove the clay from underneath and pour another mold half on top of that, and I'll end up with 2 complete halves. Now I'm going to go ahead and make sure I get it all out. And I'll go ahead and use the same stick, which the other part, A and B parts. And these are measured out by volume in this case. Sometimes they're measured by mass. Okay, and I'll set that there. And you can determine how much is needed. There's a lot of methods to do that, from coffee ground or coffee beans to rice. I'm using the old-fashioned guess technique. Okay, stir it really well. Get the sides and the bottom, and then pour it into another container. I'm using a wood paint stirrer, but you want to make sure it's clean. No splinters. Unlike the polyurethane, the silicone is, well, it doesn't stick to anything, which is nice, but it's intended to last a long time, so you can get a lot of castings from it. So you have to be pedantic in how you mix it and so on. This is a low viscosity fluid, so it doesn't need a vacuum to deaerate. You should pour a long, thin film so that the air has a chance to get out. And also you should pour on one spot and let it flow over the object, which I'll do. Okay, now for the fun part. And I'm going to have to fill this right up to the top, basically. And the good news, if you don't have enough, you can mix up another batch. So I'm going to let it flow into the mold. And you might see air bubbles. They're working themselves out as they flow over the lip. You can pour it on top of a spatula or some kind of stir also to spread it out, which you do in certain castings, especially if you have some surface treatment. Well, you do that with the resin pours, with the polyurethane pours. I'm just taking my time. It's flowing across. And again, if I don't pour enough, I can mix up another batch. And this is very peaceful. There's a lot of work required in getting the model perfect, because everything that's not perfect will show up in every casting that you do, and you'll have to sand it away or fill it or do something. So really spend a lot of time with that part of it. I also have my hot glue gun ready to go. I have tape ready to go, so in case there's any leakage, I'm going to let this flow. Getting a little ahead of myself here. So in case there's any leakage, you can fix it right away. And this doesn't have a lot of pressure on it because it's such a shallow piece, but some pieces are very deep, so there's a lot of head pressure on it. That flow. Again, it's not a problem to pour on top of this. There's no big rush. Of course, it's more work. I'll let that flow some more. It's more work to have to do that, so it's nice to get the volume correct the first time. Now I'm getting a little impatient. And you can pour in 2 different parts. I've done that before. It's not that big a problem, but just flow over the mold. And I'll probably just shut the video off at this point, but that's how you pour one half of this mold, and I'll do the other half once this dries.